Hi guys, welcome back to Gym Girls Unfiltered. So we have a very special guest today. I think it's going to be such a fun episode. So we have Gabe with us. He is a sports psychology coach, and I'll let you take it away, Gabe. Introduce yourself and where you are in the world and what you do.
Hey guys, how's it going? Currently down in San Diego, California. My girlfriend's got a conference down here, so just taking a nice slow week down here, just down here to train, enjoy some good food, but really mostly based out of San Antonio, Texas. Been there for a couple years now. Been in the sports psychology world now since 2019 when I went to grad school. And since then, I've kind of just moved around the country. I graduated in 2020, and then I started working as a military contractor in 2021. So I was in Fort Polk, Louisiana, contracting for the Army, and then I moved over to Columbus, Mississippi, working with Air Force student pilots, and then now I'm in San Antonio working with Air Force fighter pilots and instructor pilots, and also doing the sports psychology private private side as well in the meantime. Just started up that business.
So very cool. Awesome. Well, I know that you work with a lot of bodybuilders as well. And how did you kind of pivot your way into that space from, working with pilots to working with bodybuilders? What inspired that?
Honestly, it was my first client. So his name is Daniel Coffeen. I know a lot of people probably know him from social media. He's a posing coach. And I actually met him at the Muscle Factory here in San Antonio. And just
Very
kind of
cool.
by happenstance, I just saw that he was training one day. And I was like, hey, man, like, I saw that he was pretty big. And I was like, hey, can you come spot me on this pendulum squat? He was like, yeah, sure, dude, no problem. How many reps do you want? And I was like, just as many reps as I can get, and then a couple force reps. And he was like, yeah, no problem. So I do the set, and he was like, hey, man, that was a really good set. We should train together sometime. And I was like, yeah, dude, for sure.
That's a
Um,
huge compliment too.
yeah. And like we had never spoken before that either. We had just kind of seen each other in the gym, and he was like, yeah, we should train together. And so I was like, yeah, for sure. And so that's how our friendship kind of started out. And then we started talking. He was like, hey, like, what do you do? I let him know, and he was like, does that work in bodybuilding too? Like, I imagine it would. I was like, yeah, man, for sure. And he's like, well, I've got a show coming up that I'm going to be doing in like 3, 4 months. Can I hire you to do the sports psychology stuff with me? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So he was actually my first private client. And I've been working with him since I want to say April of 2024, so a year and a half now.
That's
And
awesome.
we hop on a call every single week, making sure that he's hitting all his goals and whatnot. And he was finally the one after about a year or so was like, dude, you need to open your business. You need to open your business. And so I finally
That's amazing.
dove in and just started up, and here I am today.
Yeah. It's really cool that as a bodybuilder too, he was able to be like, hey, this is something that I need to tap into is the mental side of things. Because bodybuilding at a surface level, top down view, it's so physical. It's so your training, your nutrition, your recovery. And a lot of times we forget about the mental aspect. So for him to be like, hey, this is something that I think would be helpful to me, that's huge.
Yeah, I think a lot of bodybuilders, especially, they get so caught up in like what my body looks like, they forget what their mental is like. And that
Yeah.
was something I struggled with when I first came to you, Gabe, my coach Mike, when I was struggling so hard, like just comparing myself constantly, and like it was bringing me down. And that stress mentally, it could you could see it on my physique. So I guess a question I have for you, Gabe, is like what do you see commonly with bodybuilders, and is there like a difference that what you see with like your male clients versus your female clients?
Man, there's I'm very lucky that I get to work with people that have lots of different backgrounds, which means I get to see lots of different, I guess, barriers to mental performance. But some of the main ones that I see is people really overthinking their physiques, whether it's deep in an off season and they've put on more body fat than they would like to, or people in prep where they have the so-called prep goggles on where they're looking really great and they're like 4 weeks out and they're like, man, I look like I'm 8 weeks out. Like I'm freaking out. I'm not going to be in shape. I'm not going to be on time. So those are the two main ones I see body image wise. In terms of training, a lot of the clients that I work with do some form of log booking. And obviously, all of us in here, we know progressive overload is really important to building muscle. And so a lot of the people put so much pressure on themselves to perform that they walk into the gym almost with this avoidance mindset where they're thinking to themselves, I can't not perform to a high level. And then there becomes this pressure where now the pressure to perform kind of supersedes their enjoyment of the actual training, which, I mean, all of us in here, we love to train, but we put so much pressure on ourselves to perform well
Yeah.
in training rather than walking in there with more of an acceptance mindset of, I'm just going to go in there, I'm going to give my best effort, and whatever the logbook says, whatever the numbers are, whatever the weight, the reps are, that's just going to be what it is, right? And that's where I think a lot of people kind of get lost in the sauce. So training, body image, and then just another big one is just time management as well and stress management. I think a lot of people aren't ever really taught how to manage their stress effectively, especially growing up. You're just kind of like, hey, yeah, there's stress here. I'm just gonna trudge through it and not
Yeah.
actually find ways to alleviate some of that stress in a healthy way. And I think bodybuilding really exacerbates that.
Yeah.
And so just being able to talk with people about, being able to journal your thoughts and then work through some of the root of those stressors and then how to kind of navigate those. Those are the main things I typically see.
It's so interesting too to hear you say that because I mean, I've been working with Gabe now for a few months, and that was one of the first things I realized is how little as I think as bodybuilders, as anybody watching this podcast, you probably hold yourself to a really high standard and you put a lot of pressure on yourself, like Gabe is saying. And I realized how little time we spend actually in our thoughts and like working through those stress patterns because a lot of times it's just okay, we got to go go go, like white knuckle your way through the diet, through the training, through your work or whatever it is. And when you really allow yourself to like sit in your thoughts, it's like, oh shoot, okay, there's a lot more to this that kind of blends over into all aspects of your life. I feel like, I feel like when you get into the gym and you get you know, you learn discipline and you learn all these different things that blend into different aspects of your life. And I think the same goes when you start to tackle the mental side of the game too, is it starts to blend over into your training and into your career. And like, I think it really is a powerful thing. But what would you say to people that are maybe thinking about like, okay, maybe this is something I need to tackle? Like, what's like the first step that you have somebody do if they're like, all right, this is something I need to work on?
I think all of sport and performance psychology kind of stems with self-awareness, right? And so I think a big portion of that is kind of just sitting down and thinking and really working through, okay, what are the main triggers? What are the main stressors? And what are my reaction patterns to those different types of triggers and stressors, right? Because I might have a stressor in my life that might trigger a certain type of behavior pattern that I've learned over years versus someone else who might be a business owner or a bodybuilder, right? And Alani, we've navigated some of this as well. It's
Absolutely.
one person's response might be to avoid doing all the work and procrastinate it, and then other person's might be, I'm going to dive fully into the work so much so that everything else kind of falls apart. And so I think it starts with self-awareness and understanding what your responses are. And then from there, starting to navigate what strategies and tools can be useful to get ourselves out of those negative habit patterns.
I want to talk about the strategies and tools you use for like certain situations and
Mhm.
athletes, but first, I think it'd be important to touch on how do you get people to open up because you can't even help someone before you get them to open up. Do you ever like face people having a hard time opening up to you?
That's a big one too, but I don't want to interrupt, but that's something that I've had to deal with too, is like how do you
Mhm.
communicate these thoughts? So I'm interested to hear the answer to that as well.
I think a big part of it is really just comes down to connection and just kind of building that rapport with someone. I've noticed, especially working with pilots and fighter pilots and working in the military, like military people are known for not really wanting to talk about their issues. And one thing that I really like about my job there is that I'm not associated with like the medical group. So nothing that I do ever goes um, on their what's the phrase I'm looking for?
Like their record or
It doesn't
something.
go on the record. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so that's kind of what I like to lead with is like, hey, I'm not a health provider, right? And so we can just have an open dialogue. And then a lot of that really just comes to like, what are you dealing with? And then I think just asking the right questions and almost setting a really relaxing environment. So I think environment's really key and just, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I feel like I'm pretty personable and just being able to kind of foster some good connections. So and then being able to somehow relate in some way, whether it's, I'm also a business owner, so I work with business owners. I'm also a bodybuilder, so I get the struggle of being in prep, or I get the struggle of being deep in an off season with more body fat than I would like. And so just kind of having walked the walk, I think helps a lot.
I agree. What does a call look like for you? So someone's on a call for the first time with you,
Mhm.
and how do you kind of just like go about get to figure out what are their issues?
Honestly, every call looks different, and it really
Mhm.
just comes down to the athlete that I'm working with. First call is always going to be just kind of building up that rapport and just building that background with the individual, trying to get to the root of, what are you struggling with right now? But actually, what are you really struggling with? Because a lot of times it's, oh, like I'm really stressed out because work is really stressful. But in reality, it's, oh no, there's actually something else much deeper that's causing you to show up to work in a way that this job that you really used to love is now causing you stress because there's some sort of other underlying issue. And so that first call is really just kind of exploring what that individual's tendencies look like. What does their lifestyle look like? Because that also plays a huge factor in it. I mean, especially as coaches, I know Alani and Caroline, you guys both coach as well.
Yeah.
You're going to coach someone who's, single, no kids, completely differently than someone who's a mother, three kids, also has a husband, right? And so getting a very clear lifestyle picture, a very clear habits picture, and then also trying to figure out what are your goals? What are you hoping to get out of these calls? And then how can we develop those strategies together?
Awesome. I have a question for you, Gabe, that I think might resonate with a lot of our audience members, whether they're, competitors or just somebody getting into the gym. But I think a lot of people deal with something you touched on, that negative body image or body dysmorphia, we like to call it. How do you help clients deal with that sort of thing, especially if they're making progress, but they can't see it themselves?
So a lot of times when you're in that state where you're analyzing what your own physique looks like, a lot of it is really just an emotional response, right? And so I can tell you one of my clients that I work with, um, she was finishing up her bulk, I guess, or kind of like a cleanup phase right after a bulk. And
Hmm.
she was dealing with the same issue. And she was like, you know what? I don't want to look at my check-in photos.
Yeah.
And so one of the strategies that we developed was, okay, you're going to before you even set up your check-in environment, I want you to go through a gratitude exercise where you think about, here are the really good things about bodybuilding. Here's what I really love about my body and what my body allows me to do, whether it's training, whether it's, I get to go be active with my friends, my family, my kids, etc. And so you're going into those check-ins in a state where physiologically and mentally you're thinking about all the good stuff. And then you go in, you take those check-in photos and try not to look at them for too long, send them off to your coach. And then after kind of like the dust has settled, where maybe it's been 15, 20, 30 minutes, then we can look at the photos. And then you're looking at those photos through a lens that is much more one of gratitude, and you're really focused on what are the good things that I can point out in my physique, whether it's, hey, maybe I put on a little bit more body fat, but I can see that my glutes got a little bit bigger, or my
Yeah.
shoulders are a little bit more capped right now.
Yeah.
So that's one way about it. And then I know, Kate, do you want to talk on what you've done in terms of body image, how we've worked together?
Yeah. So when I first had my first call with Gabe, I was a mess, y'all, and I feel so bad because I feel like our first call, I would like talk about one thing and then the next sentence would be something else. That was like a
Me
whole different
too.
topic in my life I was struggling with. And we finished our call and I was like, I think I just rambled for like an hour and a half. But Gabe was super understanding. But yeah, body image was a big issue for me when I came to Gabe. Um, like check-ins, but also just like going to the gym. I didn't want to look at myself in the mirror, and if I was having a super bad body image day, I would just like shut down, and it would affect my training. It would affect my rest of my day. It would affect me when I go to work. But he had me write some sticky notes, and I still have them on my mirror. And that was like 6 months ago. But I wrote those sticky notes, and it was like positive affirmations and things just I wanted to read every morning to make me feel good about myself. And even though it wasn't like anything fancy, it was just like, you are beautiful, you are strong, you're doing the best you can, because I have a lot going on.
Yeah.
And just that mental barrier of like just hate my body every single day was just, I felt like I was just being dragged down
Yeah.
every day, like further and further. And then for check ins, when I came to Gabe, I would take my check-ins and I would just like sit there and just like look at them for 30 minutes and hate them. And checking in used to take me about an hour because I would take pictures, look at them, and be like, nope, got to do this again.
Yeah.
But now, like, I took some check-in pictures today just for myself, just for fun, and I looked at them and I just pick out positive things. You guys know I'm in a gut protocol. My muscles are not as full or like as big, but instead of like harping on that now like I used to, I look at it and I'm like, okay, I'm not as inflamed here. I feel so freaking good, and I'm almost to the end of this protocol, and I'm so proud of myself. And just like Gabe just said, like, you have to focus on the positive things. Like, we're going to be our biggest critics, and just constantly pulling yourself down. The more you say negative things to yourself, the more you're going to believe those things. So switch it with the
Absolutely.
positive things. And Gabe's taught me that the more positivity you bring into your mind and into your day, the more you're going to believe it.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to add to that as well is that you've also done a lot more of the work with that. So it's not just like, hey, I'm going to put sticky notes on my mirror and like all of my body image issues are going to be solved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want people listening to this to think like that is a way to solve body image. But you've done a lot more of the work, whether it's like, the journaling, right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
add in the affirmations, and then we start looking at things a lot more logically. And then it starts with that self-awareness. If you know that you're going to be approaching those check-ins in a much more emotional state, then it's okay, how can I get myself in a better mindset or mind state to be able to go do that task?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to go do the task. And then when I go to analyze it, I'm not spending an hour looking at photos. I'll get a couple of warm up rounds in just to make sure everything's nice and loose. I'll take my photos and then I'll send them off. And then if I need to take a minute before I look at them, then I will. But it's a much more logical approach and one that is more detached from emotion that I think that's what's really helped you as well. So there's a
I
lot
Yeah.
more
will.
work that's gone into it.
Yeah, I will say the biggest exercise that you gave me, Gabe, to do was the journaling. And I used to stress about things I couldn't control, but Gabe had me sit down with a journal and write down everything that was stressing me out. And then after I was done writing my list, he had me go back through and circle everything I can't control. And he told me those things that are circled, do not worry about them, do not stress about them. And honestly, just minimizing my stress, I think helped the most with my body image issues, because I've always been like super proud of myself, like even if it was kind of buried under. But I think a lot of just like the life stressors I was dealing with, or like just stressing that maybe I didn't train as good, or I was stressed about being on call for work or something like that. I think it was like correlating into how I felt about my body.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear your take kind of on like the social media side of things, because obviously as bodybuilders and like, being online coaches, we all are on social media all the time, and obviously you are too, trying to grow your business. And I know I just took like a huge step, and I am taking like 3 months off of social media just because I needed it for my mental, and it was like the decision I needed to take, whether I wanted to or not. So obviously, like social media is a big thing, and we always are comparing ourselves to other people, whether it's off season, stepping on stage, who we're going to compete against. So I'd kind of love to hear your take on how you help athletes navigate through that comparison game, and then also kind of how you really focus on that balance of social media, being a sports psychologist, but also you're obviously present on social media trying to grow your business.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing here is that I just view social media personally as a tool, right? And don't get me wrong, like, I've been down that rabbit hole before myself of playing the comparison game, especially when I was prepping for my show last year. Um, but then I also see the value and like the connection and the great people that it's brought me. And so it's like I'm sitting here on this call with you three right now, and this wouldn't be possible if I didn't have social media, right? And some of my best friends I've made through social media. And so while it is a bit of a double-edged sword, I think that learning how to navigate the comparison um, is definitely difficult at times, right? Especially in a sport where the judges are literally comparing you to the person to your left and to your right. I feel like you almost get wired that you're almost thinking like, oh, when you see someone on social media and it's their best photo under the best lighting with a pump, you're thinking to yourself, oh, how do I stack up next to this person on stage to my left and to my right? And then you almost get wired in a way where you're doing that now with every physique that you see, whether it's an Olympian who's on stage or someone who just won, your local show. And so I think a big part of that, again, goes back to the self-awareness piece. What is my mind state like when I log on to social media? I think a lot of people just make it a habit of just as soon as I open up my phone, I just go straight to Instagram. And before you know it, it becomes this unconscious thing where you're not even aware of what sort of mindset or mind state you're in. You just log on and, um, sorry, there's just a lot of ambient noise.
Sounds good on my end.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that if you can be a little more conscious of like, hey, is it right now a good moment for me to be on social media, given where I'm at? And that's, I think, a conversation that a lot of people don't have with themselves just because we're so used to, open up the phone, boom, immediately
Yeah.
go to Instagram. But then in terms of like the actual navigation piece, and I think I've talked about it with Kate a bit as well, is when you're looking at those other physiques, can you stop and have that conversation of, oh, she looks really good. Oh, I don't stack up with her. Well, guess what? Maybe she's been doing this 10 years longer than I have. Or maybe she's been doing it for the same amount of time and I'm just not quite there yet. Right.
Yeah,
But I
that
think
was
I think
something
a
else.
good.
Sorry, Gabe, go ahead and finish.
And I think that being able to have that conversation of, you know what, I'm playing my best cards as they were dealt. I'm hitting all of my meals. I'm doing my cardio. I'm training my butt off. And that's really the only thing you can control. And so
Yeah.
if you can really hone in on your own journey and try to view others' journey that they're sharing almost as a form of appreciation, I think that's where you can start using social media as a really positive tool for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something else, Gabe, that we talked about is remember when I went to Texas in July and I came back and we talked after I went to destination and I was just
Hmm.
like I was in my head because these people are like elite and I was just in my head the whole time I was there, even though my training was going great. I was
Yeah.
constantly comparing myself to people there in person. And instead of comparing myself and being like, why don't I look as good as them? Gabe made me take a step back and be like, wow, like these people look amazing and mad respect for to them for living the sport and the life that I love so much. And it made me look at people differently, even on social media. Instead of going on social media now and comparing myself, I like love to cheer people on now. And like
Yeah.
not that I always have it, but there was like a sense of like almost jealousy I think I had in me. And I just constantly would compare and constantly be jealous I didn't look like them. But instead of like just bringing yourself down, look at those people and be like, wow, they're doing the thing. And I'm so happy to like be able to follow their journey and see other people doing what I love. And
Yeah.
I think social media, like everything, it's this perspective you have. And if you go into social media with the perspective like, oh, this is really bad for me, or this is making me feel bad about myself, then maybe take a step back. But I think that it is a great tool, and I've met my bestest friends on social media,
Yeah.
and I met my boyfriend on social media, the person that lives with me now, and like, sure, like. I think you just need to learn to not make it your life. I think a lot of people make it their life. They don't know how to get off of social media when they're at dinner or hanging out with someone and they're constantly on their phone. And that's not a social media problem, that's a you problem.
I love that. I think that there's something so true about that too, where it really is a mindset shift away from like there's no value in comparing your journey to somebody else's journey. And we've talked about a lot about this in the past because it's something we've all struggled with. And it's like this may be your day 30 and somebody else's day 500. Even if it isn't, it's not in your control. So coming back to, hey, am I doing all the things that are within my control. And if I am, then there's nothing that I need to be worrying about. And I'm just worrying about, okay, am I becoming the best version of myself? And I'm doing that alongside these other people that are progressing. And I think it really is coming back to those connections that you make. Because, yeah, some of my best friends I've met over social media too, you know? And I remember at my show in, what was it, Charleston. And I mean, Kate was there, Caroline was there. Like, there were, what, six of you girls that like came
Yeah.
up for the weekend. And it's like, it's crazy what social media will do. So there's a lot of positives, there's a lot of negatives, but I think it does come back down to your mindset in that space.
And
Yeah.
Caroline, I'm curious to know. So I know you said you're taking a little bit of a break from social media. What are you hoping to get out of that break?
I hope when I come back, I can just find that perfect balance of like how to use it and when to go on it and when to kind of step back from it.
Have you had the conversation with yourself and started to identify like what that should look like? I don't know how long into like this 3 month social media break you are.
Oh, I literally started it yesterday.
Okay. And I think honestly, like going through that kind of exercise could be very beneficial in terms of right now for this time away, where you're almost like, okay, here's in an ideal world, here is how I would use social media when I get back. And then you almost have that conversation of comparing it to how would I use it in a perfect world? How have I been using it? And then how do we close the gap between the two?
Hmm.
Because I mean, I've done the whole social media, like cold turkey. Like, I wake up one day and I'm just like, I've had enough of this. And then I just delete it. And I'm just like, all right, I'm going to come back in 2 months or something. And I think there is a lot of value in that for sure. And I think people get a better sense of clarity in terms of like, hey, what's important? How can I be more present? But I also think that a lot of times, like, and I've been guilty of it, I come back to social media and then I keep using it the way that I was before. And then there's almost this cycle.
Yeah, I used to be so caught up in the number of followers I have. And Gabe, we may have talked
Yeah.
about this once, but I used to be just
Hmm.
so caught up. Like the beginning of the summer, I had like 12.8, and now I have like 12.2, and it's just steadily dropped, even though I posted. And I think I just was so caught up in that. And I even talked to Gabe one time. I was like, I'm just going to delete Instagram or like get off of everything because like, I just suck. Like, obviously, something I'm doing is wrong. And instead of like just focusing on numbers or like social media, look at it as a way to share your journey and to make friends. And that's
Yeah.
honestly what I've shifted my mindset to. Sure, I have less followers now, but I've like this is like the best like group I feel like I have on social media. Like you have those people you talk to every day.
Yeah.
And this is like I just have so many like girls that I talk to every day. I text Caroline every day, I text Alani, and like I wouldn't have you guys without social media. And even though it can be like tricky to navigate, there's definitely some positives around it. But I don't know how we got into like talking about social media, but I kind of want to hear Gabe. Like, you're a bodybuilder. How do you like struggle like with your own mental like I hate to say issues, but your mental thoughts like being a
I've wondered that
psychologist
too.
plus a bodybuilder?
Honestly, I think the biggest ones are kind of like time related, given that I'm about to be 30 in December. And
That's
with
crazy.
that,
I would have
thanks,
never guessed that.
thanks, making me feel
December.
old.
December.
I thought you were
Yeah,
like
my
25.
no, yeah, I'll be 30 in December
December what?
20th.
Okay, I'm the fourth.
Let's go, Sagittarius.
Yeah.
Happy early birthday, guys. That's soon.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Honestly, I think my biggest struggles are from like a time perspective, where I'm thinking to myself, like, hey, I'm almost 30 years old. I feel like I'm just now starting to hit my groove in terms of like really nailing the training. I've been nailing the nutrition now for a couple of years, but I don't feel like I've gotten the same type of results that my efforts have warranted. And
Yeah.
so I do get caught up in that conversation with myself too, of like, hey, why am I pouring my whole life into this when I feel like I'd be lucky to win a local show, to win a bodybuilding overall. And especially given that I want to do men's open bodybuilding and I'm 205 pounds right now, I'm a little fluffy. It's like, man, I'm gonna need 10 more years before I even win an open overall at like a Texas Pro or a Texas State because the level of competition is so high. And so I almost look at it as like, man, should I keep doing this for another 10 years? And is it worth it for the amount of progress I've made just in the past? I'm coming up on 4 years with my coach.
Wow.
And so I think the biggest hurdles for me are just kind of reminding myself like, hey, my process is just a little bit slower than some people who have a different set of genetics than I do, whether it's better or worse. Because I think I do have really good genetics in some ways, like especially when it comes to like blood work and health markers, that have really allowed me to be aggressive in some ways, especially when it comes to like dieting and pushing hard.
Yeah.
Um, but then I also see it as like, hey, like my set of genetics are not super conducive for burning fat very quickly. And so, I mean, you guys have probably seen my diet when I posted on the story. It's like I'm
Yeah,
eating
you're
air and ice
pushing.
cubes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel great, right? And
Hmm.
like I know people who they'll diet on like 200 grams of carbs and they're like, "Oh my God, like I'm dying. I'm so hungry." And I'm just like, "Man, I can't relate. I've been on like 70 grams of carbs for a couple months now and I'm
Jeez.
fine. And
I
like
know Kate feels
I'm
you
still
there.
and I'm still
We,
progressing. Yeah. Yeah, I right? Um but I think a
I
lot
feel
of it
like
just
it's a mindset,
yeah.
It is.
And
but
I do
also,
find myself like reminding myself over and over, like, hey, like just keep walking your path. And in 10 years from now, when you can look back on it, you can be really proud of the path that you walked.
Yeah.
how
I love
how do
that.
you navigate days like when you wake up and you're like, wow, I'm running out of time. Why am I doing this? Like, how do you talk to yourself and just keep going?
I tell myself the only way I'm going to create the physique that I want, or even have the chance to create the physique that I want to, is you just got to keep executing.
Hmm.
And that's really what the conversation comes down for. For me, I don't need a ton of like, I guess like motivational activation to go ahead and execute the things that I know I need to execute. Um, but just because I've built up that self-awareness versus someone else, it's like, all right, you wake up on one of those bad days, you might need to watch a couple like motivational videos. You might need to throw on like a bodybuilding podcast of someone you really look up to. For me, it's, hey, dude, if you want to have that physique that you think you can build in 5 or 10 years, it starts with eating meal one right now. It starts with doing
Hmm.
the cardio today. And then I just look at it as like, hey, I'm just stacking up another brick, putting in
Yeah.
another brick. And that's kind of how I navigate it. And then I try to unsuccessfully sometimes emotionally detach from the task itself. And
Hmm.
I find that that typically tends to help if I can just kind of almost robot my way through it some days, which
Yeah.
may or may not be healthy, but it works sometimes.
I think there's a lot of value there though, because like there's gonna be days that you don't feel like doing it and you do feel like doing it. And a lot of times, especially people that maybe aren't competitors, but maybe they're in a cut or maybe they're wanting to build muscle. And it's like you just gotta put in the work consistently. I think a lot of people want to, they get a little bit uncomfortable and they want the plan to change. They want something to change. And it's really learning to execute and execute consistently that's going to make those changes, you know?
Well, and you said you've been with your coach for 4 years. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
how many people do y'all know they go with a coach for like 2 months and they're just like, okay,
They're like,
I
something has to change. Like, it's not
yeah.
working. Yeah.
Or they're like, oh, I need something else. Like, on to the next best thing. Or they see
Yeah.
like somebody on social media and they're like, oh, I need to be with them. But like, if you aren't staying consistent, like, you're never gonna see results. And you have to let a coach like learn your body. How, like, the past 4 years, 4 years is a long time. Have like you ever had like thoughts of like, oh, I need a new coach or something?
Yes, but that's because it was more so me avoiding the conversation
Hmm.
with myself that I just wasn't where I wanted to be yet. And I got into this thought spiral a couple times where I was like, oh, if I had a different coach, like that coach would make me better. And I was
Hmm.
like, dude, you're not executing the plan to the level that you need to. So
Hmm.
first off, let's execute the plan as it's laid out, and then the results will come. And a lot of that's just based on trust, right? I don't think
Right.
there are many coaches out there who are better than Justin Shire in terms of like, X's and O's. Like he knows his stuff. Every time he does implement a change, it's coming from a very logical place. Now, whether my body chooses to respond in the way that we want it to, that is a very that is a very different story, right? Um, but I think it's just the trust that I have in him, and also knowing that he walks the walk and that we're also very similar. Like when he diets for a show, like he diets on like 50 grams of carbs and he's a 230 pound bodybuilder on stage, 220, 230 pound
Wow.
bodybuilder on stage. And so knowing that he has to go through the suck, and when he tells me like, "Hey, dude, you're gonna have to do some zero carb days," I'm like, "Oh yeah, you do zero carb days too, no problem." Like you're leading from the front, and so I think that that really helps a lot in developing that trust and just like that level of connection.
Yeah. And like you just said, like you have to lead from the front. You do the same thing with your clients. And that's, I love following your journey because you're so real and like you share your stuff, you share your meals, you share your check-in pictures, you share your hard days. And I think that's so important for like clients to see, like me, Alani. Like, I don't know. I think it's just awesome.
It makes you a real
Thank you.
person, you know? I think
Yeah.
that's what separate, I mean, obviously there's coaches in different paths, but when you can relate to your coach, it's like, okay, this person is real. They understand the struggles and I can connect to them.
Also, Gabe, like I think it's so cool because you work with such a variety. Like I've seen you. Have you worked with John Jewett? I always see y'all commenting on each other's posts.
So I haven't worked with him directly, but we do go to the same gym.
Yeah.
And so that's where I see him all the time. I actually, I'm next time I see him at the gym, I'm going to ask him if he will sit in on my Talks from the Trenches series that I started
Hmm.
up. So if we can sit down for like 5 or 10 minutes and just kind of talk through bodybuilding stuff as he sees it. Honestly, the thing I'm really most interested in for John is I don't know if you guys have kept up with some of his posts, but he really talks about how this competitive season, he really started learning how to incorporate real life into bodybuilding
Yes.
versus before he used to just focus on just executing and whatever else happens outside of bodybuilding, like it can it doesn't get the attention it deserves. But
Yeah,
this season he really put it all together in terms of incorporating his relationship, his friendships,
that's
going
amazing.
out. I think he was like a few weeks out from one of his shows and he went to go do like a track day. They rented out some cars and went up to Austin, Texas. And he was like, I would have never done this before. I would have just been like, you know what? I'm in prep, and I'm just going to stay home and just eat
Yeah.
my meals and rest. But he learned how to really incorporate real life and balance into prep. And I think that that's something that we can all learn from because I know a lot of bodybuilders almost become hermits in prep and they use prep as the excuse to kind of shy away from real life. And I think that can have a very detrimental effect, especially in terms of feeling lonely, feeling disconnected, when in reality, we got into bodybuilding, one, because we love training, but also because of the community.
Yeah.
And so the
And
more we
we
can lean on the community, I think the better off your showing is going to be.
and I know
I'm
we've all
excited
talked
to.
about that on here because
Mhm.
we had a pod like one of our first podcasts. We talked about how especially I remember talking about how like I used to just sit at home, like even prep or not, I wasn't going to go out or like hang out or go sit at a dinner or even like I would avoid family trips or vacations or events because I was so like just scared of almost just facing the fact like, hey, I'm not going to eat. But like you said, it's real life. Like you have to go and develop those relationships, even if like you have to take your meal prep or like just push your workout later in the day or work out earlier.
I'm excited to follow his journey and see how he implements that, especially since he's at such a high level and he is so knowledgeable, because that's something that I've learned over the past few years for my life, is like I mean I'm getting married next year and like I want to be able to live a balanced life and I like the quotes there because it is tough to be able to balance both things, but it's so important. And something that you said, Gabe, that I use all the time now with my clients, and I love this phrase, is that you're fitting bodybuilding or your fitness journey or whatever it may be into your lifestyle, not the other way around. And I think that that is so important. And that's become such a mantra in my life, in my coaching business. Like when I'm talking to my clients, I think that is so important and can be really oftentimes like glazed over in the bodybuilding world.
Yeah.
Well, part of the reason why I really like following along with your journey as well, Alani, is because like you've been doing a ton of traveling recently, whether it's like going to visit family, going to check out the wedding venue, engagement photos, or yeah, engagement photos and whatnot. But like you're constantly posting like, hey, I got my entire week's worth of food prepped up. I got it in this cooler. And I think that's really important because you're leading from the front, especially with you coaching clients. And so the more people that can show, hey, I can do bodybuilding at a high level and still incorporate real life as well, I think that's really valuable. And sometimes like I love how like flexible you can be where it's, hey, maybe I'm subbing out this fruit for something else, or you know what, we're doing a fun date night where we're cooking our meal in tonight and we're using very clean ingredients and almost like macro matching some of the stuff. And so I think more people can see that and be a little less rigid and a little more quote unquote balanced. I think that's better for everyone.
I think
Yeah.
that's honestly what I try and get out through my content the most is like, I think knowledge is power when it comes to those things, especially for people that aren't ever going to step on stage. It's like learning those tools in the toolbox of how to live your life and still, see that progress.
Yeah. Gabe, you talked about earlier you have something talk in the trenches. Do you want to touch a little bit on that? And I know you've been traveling yourself too, and going and to posing workshops and doing a lot of like mental workshops with people, and just talk about that and kind of how you like get all your stuff together and like what you're seeing when you're going and traveling.
Yeah, so I think this is my fourth time traveling in the last 6 weeks. So that is far more than I am used to in such a short period of time. It started with going to Vegas for a posing retreat, and then I went to Phoenix for work for the military, and then I went to Houston for another posing event, and then now I'm in San Diego and then Los Angeles as well to be with my family. But in terms of Talks from the Trenches, this is just a little, I want to call it like a short form podcast series that I started on my Instagram page because of the fact that I think there's a gap in the market in terms of podcasting where, I don't always have time to sit down and listen to an hour-long podcast. And if I can just get like some quick hitting information from people within the field that I really respect and that I enjoy talking to, I think that has a lot of value. And so the way I kind of set it up is, I'll sit down with someone like Chaz or Josh Mata or my old training partner, Kyrie Cooper, and we'll sit down for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'll just clip like a couple minutes from that 10 or 15-minute mini podcast. Um, Wherever I see the value. And I think I had the issue initially where it's like I wanted it to be very scripted as well. And now I have it where I just turn on the camera and we just start rolling, right? And then from there I find that that's where that natural value from this short form podcast really really kind of shines because there are so many people with very different perspectives where the first guy who I did that talk from the trenches with is named Elliot Patton. He actually just won his show yesterday, and he's going into nationals. But with us, we talked a lot about faith in one of the episodes. With Kyrie, we started talking about, what does it mean to be a pro? Because he's a classic physique pro. With Josh and Chaz, we're talking about posing because they're both posing coaches. And so being able to get different perspectives from a lot of different people, I think we can get a lot of value from that. So that way it's not just, oh, dude, like, what do you eat when you're 4 weeks out? Or like, how's your training going? Like, do you like low volume or high volume? It's like, I feel like that conversation has been had so many times now.
Mhm. That's really special, and I feel like a lot of people can relate, and especially me, like being a nurse, I don't have time to listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to like maybe a 10-minute one when I'm on the way to like work. So I really enjoyed listening to your series you have going on your Instagram. But is there anything else you want to touch on? I know we've kind of kept you a long time and you're traveling.
I'm totally fine. My girlfriend's upstairs. She's sleeping. They're going to go to the conference. So I pretty much have the day to myself. I pretty much just have to do cardio. And then I'm going to go watch the Ravens football game in a couple hours.
Oh,
Um,
fun.
yeah. Um, in terms of anything else, man, I would really love to know what the next phase in your guys' evolution looks like from a mental standpoint.
Caroline, you want to go first?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think honestly, in my mental standpoint, I think I honestly will be the first to say, I think, like talking earlier, I do a great job of kind of like knowing, like, check, as long as I am checking off my boxes, my body's gonna do what my body wants to do, and my journey is my journey.
Uh-oh.
So I think what really I want to do in the mental is kind of find balance. I think just throughout life. And I think like the biggest thing we talked about is I mentally want to find that balance with social media and knowing, how to use it and when to go on it and using it for the right aspects and, not comparing to other people. So that's like really what I'm focusing on mentally right now.
And then question for you there, what sort of benefit do you think finding that balance in social media is going to provide in terms of like being a business owner or being a bodybuilder?
In terms of being a business owner, so I don't actually own the business. I work for my friend.
Gotcha.
Like I work underneath her, so it's not actually my
Okay.
business, but I think that I just want to learn how to be more present in things that actually matter in life because I was talking to someone the other day. I was like on a phone call and with a woman and she was like telling me to just like live life in my 20s and like do everything I can do and travel and like not spend money on like dumb little things. And so I have like a lot in life going on right now. Like I'm trying to find a job with my marketing degree and I'm also getting married. And so I think that I really want to focus on being present in the aspects that really matter most in life and then using social media, when I am either at home rotting on the couch or like have a reason to use it and use it for business purposes and then know like to get on it, engage, post for my business and then get off of it and be present in the things that I'm going to look back on in life and wish that I hadn't missed out on from scrolling on the phone.
That's awesome. And I know Alani and I have worked on kind of being a little bit more present. So I know she's probably got a couple tools that we've worked on that can probably help you with that as well, especially in terms of like the mental snapshots, which
Yeah.
I'll let her talk on that if she wants to, or you guys can have that conversation off air.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll kind of tie that into my answer to your question. I think for me, it's finding that balance and that presence between my different hats, as we called it in our last call, of being a business owner and being a helpful coach to my clients, and to being a fiance, and to being a daughter, and to being a good friend, and all the different roles that I play, even myself as a bodybuilder, as a content creator, like finding my identity in those things and being present in those things and being able to show up as my most authentic selves within those different roles, so I think that's been my biggest thing, is finding that balance. And what Gabe was talking about with those mental snapshots, that has truly helped me, because a lot of times my head will be in so many different places of, okay, I'm a coach right now, I'm also, want to be present with my family. Like, for example, right now we're traveling with my entire family, with my parents, with Bradley, and meeting family. So I want to be making sure that I'm present in those moments, but also showing up for my clients. And one of the things that we implemented was those mental snapshots. And anytime that I'm having a memory or in a certain moment that I want to remember, I literally take a step back and I take a mental snapshot. And I took one last night too. And it's always the times when I am just present and connecting like with the people that I love the most. And it's one of those gratitude practices, and it lets me be where my feet are and be where I am in that moment and remember like what I'm grateful for. So that's something that even I would recommend to anybody watching this, or you, Caroline. I think that that's helped me a lot to find that presence. Um,
I love that. For me, to answer your question, I'm about to move across the country to Texas. So, yay. I think the biggest thing for me in my mental evolution is going to be like just everything is changing for me. I'm going to be going to a new job. I'm not going to be working 12-hour shifts anymore. I'll be in a Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. So that's going to be adjustment in itself. And even thinking about it the other day, it was really stressing me out. And I want to be excited about it. It's something I wanted for a really long time. So I want to change my mental thought around it to excitement and just ready to embark on a new journey and just like learn. I love just learning and I love being a learner of this sport and this game. So I'm trying to look at that like as an opportunity. I'll be going to a new gym and that used to really, really scare me, but I'm excited and I'm excited to grow. I'm about to end this gut protocol in a few weeks here and we're about to start adding carbs back in this next week. And that's kind of scary to me because for so long for 10 weeks now I've eaten very low carb. My body's gotten really comfortable with what I've eaten, and thinking about adding stuff in it is scary because I'm always scared of a bad response. But I'm trying not to think about the negative. I'm trying to think about the positive. Like now it's time, my body's healed, we're still healing. now it's time I can eat more, I can grow more, and I'm just trying to have that. I want to go into this next growing phase we're about to go in with a pro mindset. I feel like I've always had a pro mindset, like with nutrition and my training, but I want to have a pro mindset in my life too. Like Alani just spoke on balance in life, not making bodybuilding the end all be all. I want to kill my training 110%, kill my nutrition 110%, but also keep putting it into my life and not be that little hermit that I used to be. So I would say that's my kind of like my mental evolution I'm looking to grow into.
I love that. And honestly, like that could be an entire podcast in itself of, what is a pro mindset, right? Because everyone else is
Mhm.
going to have different definitions of it, where you're going to have people who are, they're super hardcore and they're just like, oh, I can never miss a meal ever. Like I can never eat a
Mhm.
gram off plan, even in an off season, right? And there's other people who are like, hey, I made it to the pro ranks and I'm a pretty good pro by doing like flexible dieting and
Mhm.
every now and then I like to go out and like have fun. And so I think that that's a whole different conversation. But
I love
Yeah,
that
for the
though.
future.
we'll have to have you back on for that one.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I would love to anytime.
Love
Yeah, well,
it.
I think to end, maybe you can talk about where you see your business going and then also where people can find you at.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram at Rocha ROCHA underscore sports psych. So I run pretty much all of my business just off of my Instagram right now. But in terms of where I'd see the sports psychology coaching business going, I would like to, get a few more clients on board. I've got a pretty good roster of people that I'm working with, so by no means am I, trying to like seek out as many clients as possible. Because the worst thing I would want is for the quality of my work to suffer, especially because I am doing this on the side. So it's, most days I'm up at 5 or 5:30. I've got fasted cardio, then I'm at work for 8 hours, then I go train for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then whatever time is left, usually between 7 and 10 p.m., that's when I handle all of my client calls. Um, so I don't want that to suffer just because of the fact that I don't have enough time. But I would definitely love for my brand, the name of my company is Elite Mental Performance Consulting. I would love to see that grow in the industry and just, become a brand that is recognized for, someone who allows or helps people perform at a really high level and just helps people transform in the mental game. I want people to like be able to see me at shows like if I go to nationals or something like, oh, like that's Gabe, the mental performance coach. Like he helped me, get over X, Y, and Z, my performance anxiety of getting on stage or my performance anxiety in the gym. So ideally, that is kind of the next evolution. But right now, I'm still in the process of learning how to do like I just started making reels and stuff. So I think it's I think it's just taking it one step at a time in terms of like marketing and how I would like to expand the brand. But yeah,
Awesome.
that's the next step.
That is
Well,
awesome. Well,
you're so special, Gabe, and I love following your journey, and I'm so blessed to know you, and you've made it's so amazing because you've made a massive change in my life, in my journey with bodybuilding. But it's so nice to like see you affecting other people, and especially like my close friends like Alani, and I'm just so thankful to know you, and I'm so excited to see where your business goes.
Thank you guys for having me on. It was an honor and a pleasure. And anytime you guys need a guest on, I'm open to it.
Love it.
Love
love
it.
it.
Thanks, Gabe.
No problem.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Later.